Hello, everyone. So now this video is about the second part of lesson 5.1, which contains an important reading. It's a reading that's, I think, more challenging than the readings we've done before. That's okay, because now we're already a month into the semester, so we're getting into a rhythm of a certain type in terms of the type of work that we're going to get into. Not all readings will be in political economy like this one, but this is probably the most important reading in our study of social class. It's called Labor Power and Surplus Value. So let's go ahead and annotate it the way we usually annotate our readings. And let me go to the reading itself. And this is an excerpt from an old book from the 70s, which is excellent. And here, let's say more about labor power that we already encountered in the first part of lesson 5.1. And what I want to point your attention here is this reading is going to introduce these two formulas, if you will, or two diagrams, CMC and MCM prime. And our job is to understand what they mean because they describe in a very convenient and accurate way what the working class and the capitalist class, the two main social classes of modern societies, including American society, do for a living and how they interact. So as you read this, pay specific attention to what the CMC and MCM prime stand for. And I just want to clarify right off the bat, the word C stands for commodity, right? A commodity is anything that has two features. It is useful to somebody, to whoever wants to use it or needs it. For example, well, we'll come up with the example in a second, but a commodity again has two parts. Its usefulness to someone, and that's the reason why somebody else made it, because it meets a certain human social need. And the second part of what makes something a commodity is the fact that you can only get it one way. You can buy it for money. You can exchange money for the commodity. There's no other way to get it. And this is sort of how the modern economy is put together, the capitalist economy in which we live in, including the United States. So a commodity has two features: its usefulness to the owner of the commodity and the price that that person who needs that commodity, because it's useful to them, has to pay in money in order to get it. Not in anything else, in money. So for example, a laptop is a commodity. Why? Because I have a laptop because it's useful for my work. I use it in order to make this video and to help teach this class online. The only way I can get the commodity is by exchanging it for money. It has a price, let's say $800, $1,200, $700, whatever. If I want that laptop, I have to give to the owner of the laptop who's selling it whatever the price is, $800. Okay, so I give that person or that store $800. In exchange, they give me the computer, which is a commodity. Of course, I could steal it, but that's not very easy, right? This is why you have all the structures of the law and the executive branch of the government, which enforces the theft laws. So, of course, some things are more easy to steal than others. Stealing money, if you are an investment company, is more easy than if you steal money from a supermarket. It's kind of interesting. What we call white collar versus blue collar crime, but we'll talk about that later. But commodities have two parts to themselves: the usefulness, or its use value to whoever needs it, and its price value, its exchange value. Okay, so just so you know. So this reading, what happens when you go from C to M to C? This, by the way, is the formula of the working class. We'll talk about that in our discussions and in the outro video. And then the formula that represents the activities of the capitalist or wealthy class is described by MCM prime. Okay, now, so let's go to the discussion board. Of course, there's a little self-assessment exercise where I give you some important questions to review before you do the discussion. Right? Study what these letters mean. I kind of got you started on this. CMC. Selling something that you've made in order to buy something that you need. This is contrasted with buying something, buying a commodity or using money, M stands for money, using money that you have to buy a commodity, not in order to use it, but in order to sell it for more money than you bought it for. This is what the M prime, or you can say M plus, the little tick at the end of this M, right? This describes what the capitalist wealthy, this is how you get to be wealthy, by the way. If you get, one way is if you buy something and then resell it for more money than you bought it for, right? This is sort of Amazon's business or any retailer's business. The owners of Amazon make money this way. They buy something that they didn't make, but somebody else made, a commodity, and then they resell that commodity for higher. This is what Walmart does, right? Or any other store, retail store that doesn't produce the stuff that they, okay. In MCM prime, I'm calling prime the little tick, or MCM plus, you can say. Pay attention to this M plus or M prime. What does it mean, right? The reading describes that this M prime refers to surplus value, which we already encountered in our study. And this, by the way, as you'll find out, is the general formula of capital. You'll see our old friend labor power again. And here it's important because on page 24, we have a description of how labor value is the key thing that makes profits possible. So profits are impossible for those who own a business or wealth. They cannot increase their wealth without the use of labor power of somebody else's. Key question number 5, how is money transformed into capital? You know, if you take a dollar bill out of your pocket, that's not capital. That's just money of a certain value that you can buy stuff with. But how does money get transformed into capital? This is the key point for the entire module 4 and 5, for both of those modules on social class, right? How does money become transformed into something that allows you, if you have enough of it, to increase your wealth rather than just spend it to buy stuff? See, because if you just spend money to buy stuff to use, you lose money. In other words, you don't get wealthier. If I don't get wealthier if I go to the supermarket and I spend $45 in groceries, I got $45 worth of groceries that are useful to me because I'm going to eat them, but I didn't get wealthier by spending that money. But if your money functions as capital, whatever that means, and that's, you got to find out what that means, then you can actually increase your wealth. $100 becomes $120 somehow. That somehow has to do with labor power. And question 6, money is transformed into capital through something called surplus labor. Surplus meaning extra labor. And surplus labor is connected to labor power. Right? So you see what we're doing. We're starting to establish these webs of meaning about social class. Pages 28, 29, you can skim. Read them quickly. We're not going to focus much on them. But 1 through 6 are extremely important to understand for our study of social class. Okay? And discussion board 5.2 is the last thing in this first part of the lesson. Respond to the following question. It's a kind of a big question, which is, I'm encouraging you to bring together everything that you studied and reviewed in the self-assessment for this reading, questions 1 through 7, into your comments in this discussion board. As we learned thus far, the capitalist class consists of people who own wealth, as well as the means of production. So now I'm assuming we all know what these words mean, right? So we're going to start using them in our conversation. But the big question is, how does the capitalist, a wealth owner, remain wealthy? That's the fundamental thing we want to understand. Because if we can understand this, you'll see later on in the next module, because understanding what a capitalist is, a wealthy person is, and how they stay wealthy, will go a long way in understanding why certain choices were made when designing the US system of government, the Constitution. And I think it's still, you'll see that for today's politics, so this is an election year after all, if we understand what social classes are in America in this kind of detailed and sophisticated way, and for example, we understand what a capitalist class is and what the people in the capitalist class want, they want to maintain their wealth above all, because that gives them certain freedoms and privileges that are not available to working class America. you'll see how certain choices and certain things that happen in American politics, like tax policy, like why do we have privatized healthcare system, even in the midst of a pandemic? Because a privatized healthcare system is a great way to maintain or increase your wealth if you own the healthcare system, or if you own a hospital, or if you own a health insurance company, okay? Who benefits from low taxes in general? The answer is not controversial. Only the wealthy class. Because if you're not wealthy, you tend to rely on things that are not private. You rely on public transportation to go to work in New York City, for example, because you can't afford to park in Manhattan 200 days a year, because the parking fees are going to be like half of your salary. So you need to take the F train to work. So you want the F train to run well and to be clean and to be on time. But well, that requires money, city government money. And taxes are the largest source of government money. So if your taxes are increasingly lower over the last 30 years, you're going to have a shitty, pardon my French, subway system. But the wealthy don't need the subway, or not nearly as much. They can use Uber every day. They can walk to work because they live 10 blocks away or 3 blocks away, so on and so forth. So how does the wealthy class remain wealthy? The answer to this question depends on understanding the MCM prime or MCM plus diagram. So let's practice, because this is going to be the exam essay question on the midterm, something like this. Explain in your own words, but basing your ideas on reading 5.1, respond to the following question. Explain MCM prime to show how capitalists maintain and increase their wealth. Think about what you reviewed in questions 1.7, 1 through 7 on self-assessment exercise right before this discussion board. Refer back to the reading and think. How do capitalists maintain and increasing their wealth? By doing MCM plus in their daily lives. I'll give you a hint. They create a business, a private for-profit business. They create a coffee chain. But what is necessary in order to start Starbucks? Let's say we're the owners of Starbucks and we're starting a coffee chain. Well, we need to do MCM prime. We need to invest money that we have that we don't need because we have extra money because we're wealthy. We need to invest money. We need to put money and buy all the commodities, C, that are necessary to run a coffee shop chain. Think about what those may be. All those commodities cost money because a commodity is something that has a price in order to get it. So we have money because we're wealthy. We pool our money together. We become investors. And we buy all the commodities, which are then put to work to make a new commodity, which we then sell for more than it cost us to make it. So if the latte is going to be $4.65, you can bet that it costs much less than that to make. Otherwise, they wouldn't be available. Because the point of Starbucks is not to sell good coffee. The point is to make the owners of that business wealthier. Right? It's a for-profit business. So how does MC, and of course, in order to explain this, you should use concepts like labor power, surplus power, value, surplus labor, and surplus value. You should talk about the commodities. Basically, it stitches everything together. It's a good exam practice question. See you later.